Revival Muslims presents you another Islamic audiobook. This is the second part of Khulafa-e-Rashideen series. Hadhrat Umar Ibn Al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu.
Content. Hadhrat Umar. Umar Ibn Al-Khattab was the second Rashidun Caliph during 634 to 644 CE, 14 to 24 AH. The first Rashidun Caliph was Hadhrat Abu Bakr, after whose death in 634 CE. Hadhrat Umar took over as the Caliph. He was a senior companion and father of al-Mu'mineen Hafsa radiallahu anhu. He was given the title of Al-Farooq, meaning the distinguisher between the right and wrong. Hadhrat Umar was born in 582 CE, 40 AH, in Mecca in Banu Adi subtribe of Quraysh. Banu Adi were the descendants of Adi ibn Ka'b. His father's name was Khattab ibn Nufail, and his mother's name was Hantama bint Hisham. She was from Banu Makhzum subtribe of Quraysh. Banu Makhzum was one of the wealthy subtribes of Quraysh. Ancestors. Hadhrat Umar's ancestors from his father's side were Umar bin Al-Khattab bin Nufail bin Abdul Uzza bin Riyad bin Abdullah bin Qurat bin Raza bin Adi bin Kabi bin Luay. The ancestors of Prophet Muhammad were Muhammad ibn Abdullah bin Abdul Muttalib bin Hashim bin Abd Manaf bin Susai bin Kilab bin Murrah bin Kab bin Luay radiallahu ta'ala anhum. Thus, Hadhrat Umar's ancestry from his father's sides meets with the ancestry of Prophet Muhammad on Kab bin Luay. Hadhrat Umar's ancestors from his mother's side were Hantama bint Hisham bin Al, Mughira bin Abdullah bin Umar bin Makhzum bin Yakaza. Early life. Hadhrat Umar spent his childhood like other Arab children of that time, but he had learned to read while many of his peers did not know how to read or write. It is reported that his childhood that was spent in relatively tough conditions, as he used to tend camels belonging to his father. In his early youth, Hadhrat Umar excelled in wrestling, riding, and horsemanship. He enjoyed listening to and narrating poetry. He was also interested in the history and affairs of the people of Quraysh. He used to attend famous Arabian fairs like Uqais, Majana, and Dhu al-Majaz. Uqais was a marketplace located between Nakhla and At-Taif in Arabia. It was largest and best-known seasonal market in pre-Islamic Arabia, which operated for 2 weeks each year during the month of Dhu al-Qa'dah. Similarly, Majana and Dhu al-Majaz were also marketplaces in the pre-Islamic times where people used to engage in trade. Hadhrat Umar was keen to use these fairs to talk to people to learn about the history of Arab tribes, their disputes, battles, and living conditions. Umar also used to travel with trading caravans to Syria in summer and Yemen in winter. Umar was wise, eloquent, well-spoken, strong, persuasive, and clear in speech, which made him an ideal candidate to be the ambassador of Quraysh, who used to send him to negotiate with other tribes on their behalf on various issues. Since he was trusted by Quraysh and Quraysh's interests were close to his heart, he opposed Islam in the beginning and was reported to be harsh towards Muslims, particularly the slaves who had accepted Islam. He opposed the Prophet as he considered that the Prophet was the cause of disunity among Quraysh. At one time, he threatened to kill the Prophet Muhammad. Acceptance of Islam. Hadhrat Umar converted to Islam in 616 CE, a year after Muslims' migration to Abyssinia. Ibn Ishaq wrote that one day Hadhrat Umar decided to kill the Prophet and took his sword and started from his house with that intention. On his way, he met his friend Nu'aym ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu, who had secretly accepted Islam. When Hadhrat Umar informed him about his intention, he told him not to act like a fool and not to deceive himself in this way. He warned Hadhrat Umar, saying, "Do you think that Banu Abd Munaf would let you live once you harm the Prophet? First you return to your own house and set the things right there, as your sister and her husband have already accepted Islam." Hadhrat Umar was furious to know these facts. He went straight to his sister's house, where he found his brother-in-law, who was his cousin, reciting the verses of the Quran from Surah Taha. Hadhrat Umar started quarreling with his brother-in-law Sa'id bin Zayd radiallahu anhu and knocked him down to the ground. When his sister, Fatima bint Al-Khattab, intervened to save her husband, he started quarreling with her as well and threatened her. She told him, "Even if you kill us, we will not give up Islam." On this, Hadhrat Umar slapped her in a fit of anger, and she fell on the ground bleeding from her mouth. Hadhrat Umar realized his mistake and apologized to her and asked her to show him what they were reciting. His sister replied in the negative and said, "You are unclean, and no unclean person can touch the Quran." He insisted, but his sister was not prepared to allow him to touch the pages unless he washed his body. Hadhrat Umar at last gave in. He took a bath and then began to read the verses. "Indeed it is me, Allah. There is no God except me. Worship me and establish Salah as my remembrance." Surah Taha 14. This had a profound effect on Hadhrat Umar's heart, and he started weeping and after a while declared that this is indeed the word of Allah, and Muhammad is surely the apostle of Allah. Khabbab ibn al-Arat used to visit the house of Hadhrat Umar's brother-in-law, Sa'id radiallahu anhu, and recite to him and his wife the verses of the Quran. When Hadhrat Umar entered their house, he hid himself in the house, and when Hadhrat Umar recited the Shahada, he came out and said, "O Umar radiallahu anhu, glad tidings for you. Yesterday, Prophet Muhammad prayed to Allah saying, 'O Allah, strengthen Islam with either Umar bin Al-Khattab or Amr ibn Hisham, Abu Jahl, whoever you like.' It seems that his prayer has been answered in your favor." Hadhrat Umar then went to the Prophet with the same sword with which he intended to kill him and accepted Islam in front of all his companions. He was 24 years old then. After accepting Islam, Hadhrat Umar openly prayed in Kaaba and challenged Quraysh chiefs like Abu Jahl and Abu Sufyan to stop him from praying. No one dared to stop him from that. Hadhrat Umar then challenged anyone not to stop the Muslims from praying openly. Hadhrat Umar's acceptance of Islam strengthened Muslims who started praying openly in Kaaba. It is reported that Abdullah bin Mas'udi radiallahu anhu said, "Umar's radiallahu anhu embracing Islam was our victory. His migration to Medina was our success, and his caliphate was a blessing from Allah. We didn't offer prayers in Al-Haram Mosque until Umar radiallahu anhu had accepted Islam. When he accepted Islam, the Quraysh were compelled to let us pray in the mosque openly." Migration to Medina. In 622 CE, the Prophet ordered Muslims to migrate to Yathrib, which was later named Medina. Most Muslims migrated at night fearing Quraysh resistance, but Hadhrat Umar started openly during the day saying, "Anyone who wants to make his wife a widow and his children orphans should come and meet him behind the cliff." Umar radiallahu anhu migrated to Medina accompanied by his cousin and brother-in-law Sa'id ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu. Life in Medina. The people traveled to Medina in batches, mostly during the nights. The Prophet migrated to Medina along with Hadhrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. After reaching Medina, the Prophet ordered to construct a mosque which was named as Al-Masjid an-Nabawi. One of the first steps taken by the Prophet was the establishment of brotherhood between an individual from Muhajirin with an individual of Ansar. This was known Wanaka. Hadhrat Umar was made a brother of an Ansar named Muhammad ibn Maslama. Muslims remained at peace in Medina for a year, until the Quraysh raised an army and attacked them. In 624 CE, the first battle between Muslims and Quraysh was fought at Badr. Umar participated in it. In 625 CE, he took part in the Battle of Uhud. Later in the same year, he was a part of a campaign against the Jewish tribe of Banu Nadir. In 627 CE, he participated in the Battle of the Trench and also in the Battle of Banu Qurayza. In 628 CE, Hadhrat Umar witnessed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. In 628 CE, he fought in the Battle of Khaybar. In 629 CE, he participated in the Battle of Dat al-Salasil. In 630 CE, he was part of the army who conquered Mecca. Later in 630 CE, he participated in the Battle of Hunain and the Siege of Taif. He was part of the Muslim army that went to Tabuk under the Prophet's command. Hadhrat Umar participated in the farewell Hajj along with the Prophet. After performing Hajjat al-Wida, the Prophet returned to Medina. A few weeks later, in the month of Safar, 11 AH, the Prophet fell ill. The illness increased day by day. One day, with the help of two companions, the Prophet came out of the house and gave a brief sermon from the pulpit of the mosque before noon prayer, in which he praised Hadhrat Abu Bakr, reminded people of the services of the Muslims of Medina, and emphasized the Muhajirs and Ansar to be kind to each other. During this sermon, the Prophet indicated that the time had come for him to return back to Almighty, and everyone present or absent should claim any right they had upon him, so that it could be fulfilled. People started weeping listening to the Prophet's touching sermon. During the Prophet's illness, Hadhrat Abu Bakr Siddiq was ordered to lead the congregation prayers. The Prophet stayed in the house of al-Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anhu during his illness. Hadhrat Abu Bakr continued to lead the prayers during Prophet's illness. The last day, Monday, 12 Rabia, 11 AH, when the people were performing Salat al-Far in the mosque, the Prophet lifted the curtain of his house and gazed on at the people performing Salah, which was noticed by many companions. Some hours later, the illness increased. al-Mu'mineen Hadhrat Aisha said the Prophet dipped his hand in the cup of water kept beside him and wiped his face, saying, "There is no God but Allah." Then he lifted his forefinger and said, with the exalted companion. A little later, the Prophet swooned. His head was resting on the arms of al-Mu'mineen Hadhrat Aisha when he pulled down the curtain of his worldly life. It was Monday, 12th Rabia I, 11 AH, corresponding to June 4th, 632 AD. He was 63 years old then. The news fell like a thunderbolt on the companions who were, first stunned, and then in agonizing distress, started lamenting. Hadhrat Umar could not believe this had happened. Then he declared in a fit of intense emotions, "Whoever says that the Prophet had died, he will chop his head off." The Prophet may have gone to his Lord, as Prophet Musa did for 40 nights. Then he came back to his people. By Allah, the Prophet will return back, as happened in the case of Musa alayhi salam. Hadhrat Abu Bakr supported the grief-stricken Muslims by giving a brief sermon in Prophet's mosque. He said, "Whoever worshipped Muhammad, let him know that he has died, and whoever worshipped Allah, let him know that Allah is alive and never dies." Then he recited this verse of the Quran. Muhammad is an apostle of Allah. Many apostles have gone before him. So, if he dies or is martyred, will you turn back and go away from the right path? He who turns back and goes away in haste will do no harm to Allah. Allah will reward those who are grateful. Surah Al-Imran 144. After hearing the above verse, Umar fell on his knees in sorrow and acceptance. The initial shock and grief gave place to tranquility after Hadhrat Abu Bakr's address, and people started performing funeral prayers in batches one after the other, in which no one acted as imam. The following day, Tuesday, the sanctified body of the Prophet was put to rest on the same place where he died. The family of Hadhrat Umar. The wives and children of Umar were as follows. Wives. 1. The first wife of Hadhrat Umar was Zainab bint Mazin al-Jamia radiallahu anhu. She was the daughter of Mazin ibn Habib from Jumma subtribe of Quraysh and sister of Uthman ibn Mazin radiallahu anhu. Umar married her in 606 CE and had 3 children from her, namely, Abdullah bin Umar, al-Mu'mineen Hafsa bint Umar, and Abdurrahman bin Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhum. It is related in one report that Abdullah bin Umar said, he migrated to Medina along with both his parents. The date on which she accepted Islam is not known. 2. The second wife of Umar radiallahu anhu was Kulthum bint Jerval, also known as Malaika. She belonged to Khazar tribe. She was probably married in 607 CE. Hadhrat Umar had 2 sons from her, namely, Zaid and Ubaydullah radiallahu ta'ala anhum. 3. The third wife of Hadhrat Umar was Qurayba bint Abi Umayya. She was probably married in 608 CE. She was from the Makhzum clan of the Quraysh tribe in Mecca. Her father, Abu Umayya ibn al-Mughira, was the chief of Mecca. Her mother was Attika bint Utbah from Abd Sham's subtribe of Quraysh. Qurayba did not have any children from Hadhrat Umar. Hadhrat Umar accepted Islam in 616 CE, and after his migration to Medina, all his wives and children also migrated. However, Kulthum and Karaba remained polytheists, and Hadhrat Umar divorced them. 4. The fourth wife of Hadhrat Umar was Jamila bint Thabit ibn Abi al-Afla from the tribe of Aws in Medina. Her brother Asim was among those who fought at Badr. Hadhrat Umar married her in 628 CE. She had a son from him, named Asim radiallahu anhu. Later Hadhrat Umar divorced her, and the son Asim was kept under the protection of his mother. She was later married to Yazid bin Jariya, with whom she had a son, named Abdur Rahman. 5. The fifth wife of Hadhrat Umar was Attika bint Zayd radiallahu anhu. Hadhrat Umar married her in 634 CE after the death of her husband Abdullah bin Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. She was a famous Sahabiyya of the Prophet who wrote poetry. Her father was Zayd bin Amr, was from Adi subtribe of Quraysh, who died in 605 CE. Sa'id bin Zayd radiallahu anhu was her brother. Umar had a son from her whose name was Iyad. 6. The sixth wife of Hadhrat Umar was Hakim bint Al-Harith ibn Hisham. Hadhrat Umar married her after the death of her husband Ikrimah ibn Abu Jahl, who was killed in the Battle of the Yarmouk. Hadhrat Umar had a daughter from her named Fatima radiallahu anhu. 7. The seventh wife of Hadhrat Umar was Kulthum bin Ali radiallahu anhu, also known as Zainab al-Sugra. She was married to Hadhrat Umar in 639 CE during Hadhrat Umar's caliphate. At that time, she was 12 years old. She was given the kunya of Kulthum by the Prophet as she resembles Zainab bint Muhammad radiallahu anhu, her maternal aunt. Hadhrat Umar had 2 children from her, Zayd bin Umar radiallahu anhu and Ruqayya bint Umar radiallahu anhu. After the death of Hadhrat Umar in 644 CE, she was married to On bin Jafar radiallahu anhu. She was present at the Battle of Karbala, in which Imam Hussein radiallahu anhu and his 70 male associates were killed by Yazidi army. Prominent son and daughter of Umar. 1. al-Mu'minin Hafsa bint Umar radiallahu anhu. I have written her biography under the section Ummahat al-Mu'minin separately. 2. Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu is the famous Sahabi, 610 to 693 CE, who is reported to have narrated 2,630 ahadith. I have written his biography under the section of Sahabah separately. Hadhrat Umar's Caliphate. After the death of Prophet Muhammad, Hadhrat Abu Bakr became the first caliph of Muslims. His caliphate lasted for 27 months during 632 to 34 CE. On August 23, 634, 14 AH, Hadhrat Abu Bakr fell sick and did not recover. He developed a high fever and was confined to bed. His illness prolonged, and when his condition worsened, he requested Hadhrat Ali to perform his ghusl if he dies. He also realized that it is important to nominate his successor so that it does not become a cause of trouble after him. He appointed Hadhrat Umar after discussing the matter with senior companions, most of whom favored while some apprehended, in view of the tough nature of Hadhrat Umar. After he had taken a decision in this context, Hadhrat Abu Bakr dictated his will as follows: In the name of Allah, the most compassionate and most merciful. This is the last will and testament of Hadhrat Abu Bakr bin Abu Quhafa, when he is in the last hour of the world and the first of the next. I nominate Umar Ibn Al-Khattab as my successor. Therefore, listen to him and obey him. If he acts right, confirm his actions. My intentions are good, but I cannot see the future results. However, those who do wrong shall render themselves liable to severe account in hereafter. I wish you all well and abundant mercy of Allah. After he died, Hadhrat Umar led his funeral prayer. Hadhrat Abu Bakr was buried beside the Prophet. Hadhrat Umar's caliphate lasted for 10 years during 634 to 44. Under him, the caliphate expanded at an unprecedented scale. The Sasanian, Persian, Empire came under Muslim rule. In addition, more than 2/3 of the Byzantine Empire also came under Muslim rule. Hadhrat Umar carried out massive reforms. His caliphate is known for justice and discipline throughout the nation. No one was spared from justice, and the voice of the poor was held supreme. The rich, powerful, and formidable were kept under watch so that justice and peace could prevail throughout the caliphate. Administrative under Hadhrat Umar's Caliphate. Under Hadhrat Umar, the Muslim empire expanded extensively. Therefore, he built a governance structure that would hold together the vast territory. He undertook many administrative reforms, closely oversaw public policy, and established an advanced administration for the caliphate. There were 13 provinces under Hadhrat Umar's caliphate, namely 1. Mecca 2. Medina 3. Basra 4. Kufa 5. Jazeera, upper reaches of the Tigris and Euphrates 6. Syria 7. Aliyah, Palestine 8. Ramla, Palestine 9. Upper Egypt 10. Lower Egypt 11. Khorasan, Persia 11. Azerbaijan, Persia 12. Fars, Persia. The provinces were administered by the provincial governors, or wali, who were mostly appointed by the caliph himself. Provinces were further divided into around 100 districts. Each district was under the charge of a junior governor or emir, appointed by the central or state government. Other officers at the provincial level were 1. Chief Secretary, Katib 2. Military Secretary, Katib-ud-Diwan 3. Revenue Secretary, Sahib-ul-Karaj 4. Police Chief, Sahib-ul-Adath 5. Treasury Secretary, Sahib-Bait-ul-Mal and 6. Chief Justice, Qadi. All appointments were made in writing, and a department used to keep records of all officials and soldiers in the provinces. Umar's instructions to government officials were as follows. Remember, I have not appointed you as commanders and tyrants over the people. I have sent you as leaders instead, so that the people may follow your example. Give the Muslims their rights, and do not beat them, lest they become abused. Do not praise them unduly, lest they fall into the error of conceit. Do not keep your doors shut on their faces, lest the more powerful of them eat up the weaker ones. And do not behave as if you were superior to them, for that is tyranny over them. In order to minimize the chances of corruption, Hadhrat Umar made it a point to pay high salaries to all officials. They would also get the spoils of war if they were part of the army who had won. A department was constituted to investigate complaints against the officials in all the provinces. And no government official or his agent was allowed to engage in any private business activity while holding public office. Hadhrat Umar, as a caliph, lived in a simple mud hut which had no doors. He used to walk in the streets of Medina alone every evening. He established Bait-ul-Mal for the aid of poor, and also introduced child benefits and pensions for the elderly. Shahadat of Hadhrat Umar. Hadhrat Umar's style of functioning was not liked by some people in power in the caliphate because they wanted to rule like kings. Strong central government check and the requirement of humility from their person was an irritating factor for them. Therefore, they conspired to get rid of him in order to acquire the leadership of the nation and enjoy the benefits of power and money as kings. There were secret plans and a unified action by the conspirators. In October 644, when Hadhrat Umar went for Hajj, the hired people of the conspirators were seen telling people that this was the last Hajj of Umar, as he will be assassinated soon. Jubair ibn Mut'im radiallahu anhu, who was the companion of Hadhrat Umar radiallahu anhu during the Hajj, witnessed a man standing atop a hillock shouting, "This is the last Hajj of Umar, and he will never come here again." After shouting for a few minutes, he disappeared into the crowd. He could not be identified, as everyone wore the same clothes during Hajj. During the Rami of Jamarat, the ritual of stoning of the devil, someone from the crowd threw a stone at Umar, which struck his head, and he was wounded. A voice was heard that Umar will not attend the Hajj ever again. The above incidents show the widespread conspiracy against the caliph. They wanted to create an atmosphere of fear in the caliphate. Who were the conspirators, and how did they carry out the assassination? Some people say that there was strong evidence that the ends of the net of the conspiracy were fastened far and wide in the caliphate. All the players were very much active behind the curtain, and a person named Piraz Navandi or Abu Lulu was used to carry out the assassination. Piraz Navandi was the slave of Mughira ibn Shu'bah radiallahu anhu, who was staying in Medina after his removal as the governor of Basra. What was the reason for the removal of Mughira from the governorship of Basra? Mughira ibn Shu'bah radiallahu anhu married over 80 women one after the other. In spite of so many women in his life, It is reported that he was caught by his neighbor, bare and in a compromising position, with an attractive widow named Jamil. Everyone in Basra knew that Jamil visited him often in the governor's house. The sexual act was also witnessed by a few other people. The matter was brought to the notice of Caliph Umar radiallahu anhu in Medina. Mughira radiallahu anhu was summoned to Medina. During the trial, he pleaded not guilty. The trial court was surprised when one of the 4 eyewitnesses who was part of the original complaint and had arrived from Basra to give witness backed out. No one knew why did he back out. The remaining 3 were cross-examined, and the judge acquitted Mughira radiallahu anhu on account of insufficient testimony. After the trial, Hadhrat Umar did not reinstate Mughira radiallahu anhu as he was acquitted from the charges on technical grounds. As we have described above, Piras Navandi was the slave of Mughira radiallahu anhu. The conspirators of Hadhrat Umar's assassination spread the story that Piras Navandi had personal grudge against Hadhrat Umar. What was the reason for his grudge against Hadhrat Umar? The story spread was, Piras complained to Hadhrat Umar, saying Mughira radiallahu anhu was overburdening him by a heavy tax on his personal income he earned independently. On receiving the complaint, Mughira radiallahu anhu was asked to provide details about his dealings with his slave. The complaint was disposed of in favor of Mughira radiallahu anhu, as it was found that Piras' complaint was not based on facts. It is hard to believe that a slave of a governor will dare to complain to the caliph against his master. Secondly, can this be a reason for the slave to go and kill the caliph? If his voice was not heard in the province, and even in the central government, then it is most likely and logical that he would go and kill his master rather than kill the head of the state in federal capital. Also, for over a year, Caliph Umar radiallahu anhu was continuously been threatened for his impending assassination at different places in the caliphate. When so many people were talking about the assassination, then how can it be treated as the work of a single person who would kill the caliph for the grudge over the actions of a third person, his master? Piras was the slave of Mughira radiallahu anhu, and slaves generally do not enjoy free will. They have to listen to the orders of their masters. In addition, they are kept under close watch by their masters. Piras planned the assassination so meticulously in the company of so many people, and his master, who happened to be a governor of a province, was not aware of it, is indeed a strange phenomenon. Also, the fact that Mughira radiallahu anhu was reinstated as governor during Hadhrat Muawiyah's rule, all these facts make the issue of assassination of Hadhrat Umar very intriguing. Piras was to play the part of a suicide killer, and he knew that he had to kill himself, rather than be caught alive. If he was caught alive, the entire conspiracy would have become public and the kingpins would have been exposed. Therefore, he acted as per the plan. After he fatally attacked Hadhrat Umar during the Far prayer, he tried to escape from Masjid-e-Nabawi in the cover of dark. However, he was intercepted by the people praying behind Hadhrat Umar with their bare hands. In order to escape from the mosque, he stabbed and killed 9 more people, and many others were wounded. Finally, when he was overpowered, he killed himself from the same dagger. Hadhrat Umar radiallahu anhu could not sustain fatal injuries and died 3 days later on October 31st, 644. During these fateful days, he formed a committee to choose the next caliph. While Hadhrat Umar was still alive, Hadhrat Abdur Rahman ibn Awaf and Hadhrat Abdur Rahman ibn Abu Bakr revealed that they had earlier seen the dagger that was used in the assassination attempt. Abdur Rahman bin Awaf radiallahu anhu reported that, a night before the assassination, he saw 3 people, Hormuzan, Jafina, and Abu Lulu, Piras, while they were suspiciously discussing something. On his arrival on the spot, they tried to disperse in a hurry, and in the process the dagger they were carrying fell on the ground. And it was the same double-edged dagger that was used by Piras in the assassination of Hadhrat Umar. Hadhrat Abdur Rahman ibn Abu Bakr also stated that, a few days before the attack, he saw the dagger with Hormuzan. The above eyewitness accounts confirmed that there was not just one single assassin who acted on personal animosity. It was a well-knitted conspiracy, and many people were involved in it. When eyewitness accounts became public, Hadhrat Umar's youngest son, Hadhrat Ubaydullah ibn Umar, got enraged. He went in search of the attackers and killed Hormuzan, Jafina, and the daughter of Piras. All these murderers would have been put to death anyway by the state for their involvement in the killing of the caliph. And if they were caught alive, more people would have come under the net of law enforcement authorities and punished. Another notable event took place at that time. Amr bin Al-As radiallahu anhu was the governor of Egypt, but he happened to be in Medina at that time. When the names of the assassins were disclosed and Hadhrat Ubaydullah ibn Umar went to punish them for their crime, Umar ibn Al-As radiallahu anhu along with a few of his associates rushed towards him, intercepted him, captured him, and brought him in front of the wounded caliph who was on his deathbed, charging Ubaydullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu as the killer of 3 innocent people and demanding Hadhrat Umar to punish his son. Ubaydullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu was arrested and Hadhrat Umar advised, "Let the new caliph take care of this case." Amr bin Al-As radiallahu anhu was the governor of Egypt, not responsible for the security issues in Medina. It is not known why he was in Medina at that time and what prompted him to take that swift action, level murder charges against Hadhrat Ubaydullah ibn Umar even before the law enforcement authorities in Medina could act. The presence of Umar ibn Al-As radiallahu anhu in Medina at that time, his attempt to stop Hadhrat Ubaydullah ibn Umar, and later becoming the right-hand man of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu and Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, reinstating him as the governor of Egypt during his rule. All these facts make the issue of assassination of Hadhrat Umar more intriguing. Hadhrat Umar died of the wounds 3 days later on Wednesday, 26 Dhul Hijjah, 23 AH, November 6, 644 CE. It is reported that when Hadhrat Umar was fatally injured, he sent his son Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu to take permission of al-Mu'mineen Hadhrat Aisha, if he could be laid to rest next to the Prophet and Hadhrat Abu Bakr. She shed tears to listen to the dying request of Hadhrat Umar, and secondly, she wanted that spot for herself as it was in her room where both were buried, and they are her father and husband. However, she said she has no objection. After hearing the positive news, Hadhrat Umar requested his son Abdullah radiallahu anhu to take her permission once again after his death because he doubted that she may have agreed in view of the fact that he was the Emir of Muslims. Thus, after his death, the janazah of Hadhrat Umar was carried to house of al-Mu'mineen Hadhrat Aisha, and Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu again sought her permission as per the instruction of his father before death. She cried, and with her the people also cried, and gave permission for his burial next to Hadhrat Abu Bakr Siddiq. Hadhrat Umar was thus buried next to Hadhrat Abu Bakr Siddiq. Hadhrat Umar was aware that he would be martyred. It is in Hadith, Shakik narrated that he had heard Hudhaifa radiallahu anhu saying, "Once I was sitting with Umar, and he said, 'Who among you remembers the statement of Allah's apostle about the afflictions?' I said, 'I know it as the Prophet had said it.' Hadhrat Umar said, 'No doubt you are bold.' I said, 'The afflictions caused for a man by his wife, money, children, and neighbor are expiated by his prayers, fasting, charity, and by enjoining what is good and forbidding what is evil.' Hadhrat Umar said, 'I did not mean that, but I asked about that affliction which will spread like the waves of the sea.' Hudhaifa radiallahu anhu said, 'O leader of the faithful believers, you need not be afraid of it, as there is a closed door between you and it.' Umar radiallahu anhu asked, 'Will the door be broken or opened?' I replied, 'It will be broken.' Umar radiallahu anhu said, 'Then it will never be closed again.' I was asked whether Hadhrat Umar knew that door. I replied that he knew it as one knows that there will be night before the tomorrow morning. I narrated a hadith that was free from any misstatement. The sub-narrator added that they deputized Masruk to ask Hadhrat Hudhaifa about the door. Hudhaifa radiallahu anhu said, 'The door was Umar himself.' Bukhari Book 9. At-Tabari wrote, when Hadhrat Uthman was besieged, Umar bin Al-As, who was a bitter critic of the caliph and part of the people who were aiding the rioters, quietly left Medina and stayed in the palace of Al-Ajlan he built for himself. When he got the news of assassination of Hadhrat Uthman, he said some very harsh words accusing the caliph and showing happiness on his assassination. History of At-Tabari, English version, v15, pp 171-172. Hadhrat Umar ibn Al-As's rebellion against the caliphate reached to its peak during the caliphate of Hadhrat Ali. He became the right hand of Muawiyah. It is narrated in Hadith Bukhari that Muawiyah radiallahu anhu declared in front of a large gathering of Sahabah, Tabi'in and Muslims that he was more rightful to be the Khalifa than Hadhrat Umar. Read the following Hadith Bukhari. Narrated Ikrimah bin Khalid radiallahu anhu. Ibn Umar said, I went to al-Mu'mineen, Hafsa radiallahu anhu while water was dribbling from her twine braids. I said, the condition of the people is as you see, and no authority has been given to me. Hafsa radiallahu anhu said to me, go to them, and as they, the people, are waiting for you, and I am afraid your absence from them will cause division among them. So Hafsa radiallahu anhu did not leave Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu till we went to them. When the people differed, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu addressed the people saying, if anybody wants to say anything in this matter of the caliphate, he should show up and not conceal himself, for we are more rightful to be the caliph than he. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu and his father, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. On that, Habib bin Masalama radiallahu anhu said to Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, why don't you reply to him? Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu said, I untied my garment that was going round my back and legs while I was sitting and was about to say, he who fought against you, Muawiyah, radiallahu anhu, and against your father, Abu Sufyan, radiallahu anhu for the sake of Islam, is more rightful to be a caliph, but I was afraid that my statement might cause differences among the people and cause bloodshed, and my statement might be interpreted not as I intended. So, I kept quiet, remembering what Allah has prepared in the gardens of paradise for those who prefer hereafter over this worldly life. Habib radiallahu anhu said, you did what kept you safe and secure. Bukhari, Book 64.